Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It's Thursday, the 24th of June, 2021, and the MDR, the main development region, as the title graphic there shows, looks to be waking up. We'll talk about that, some activity in the Eastern Pacific, take a look at a couple of models, then I'm going to show you some things that we've been doing with our crowdfunding through Patreon and HurricaneTrack Insider to round things out today. So let's get started, shall we? First, a look at the tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. This feature here, 0% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone, but that will not preclude it from bringing some inclement weather to this region down here. I'll take a close-up look at that via satellite in just a moment. In the meantime, this feature, now labeled Invest Area 95L, I do believe, is just off the coast of Africa. And it has generated a lot of interest and a lot of people talking about it on social media and various message boards. The National Hurricane Center giving it about a 40% chance of developing into a tropical depression over the next several days. But they do note that conditions appear only marginally conducive due to relatively cool ocean temperatures. However, a small tropical depression could still form by early next week. So we'll watch that. Any activity out in the main development region that really gets going, tropical depression or tropical storm, this early in the season is typically an indicator that we're dealing with a much more favorable pattern out this way than normal, than we're used to seeing. And we saw that in years such as 2017. You remember Brett formed out that way. And there's been other years in the past that we've seen development out there that has led to a busy season later on. 2008, 1996 are other examples, and there are more beyond that. But that's generally, what we look at. If something develops early, yes, it usually is a sign that the season will be busy. But we knew that already going into things, right? Because we saw the tweets and the information coming in from people like Ben Knoll about the upward motion and all the other factors that looked like it was going to shape up making this year busy. None of this should be a surprise, so there's that. All right, so looking at the satellite imagery this afternoon, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits, this sticks out because it's fairly bright, and in the middle of the satellite animation, it is an area of upper level energy sitting over marginally warm water temperatures. If this was August or September, this would have a better chance of working its way down to the surface. What you're seeing, though, is generally cold air in the upper levels of the atmosphere over the relatively warm Atlantic over here, and that creates instability. And that instability leads to showers and thunderstorms, and it looks interesting, and if it hangs around long enough, it could become more tropical in nature, developing a warmer center and other features that make it more of a tropical-like cyclone rather than an upper level low. Over the Florida Straits down here, just a little area of disturbed weather. Very small, weak surface trough located through there, just an area where the air is coming together. We call that convergence. And then here's the tropical wave with no chance of developing into a cyclone down approaching the islands here. You can see the upper level winds streaking out across it. There's just too much dry air, and it's just generally stable down there relative to where we're headed in August and September anyway. Water temperatures down this way are also warm enough, but there's other factors. It's not just warm water temperatures. You have to have sufficient humidity and moisture in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. The light winds, which are not what we're seeing. We're seeing strong upper-level winds rip these thunderstorms apart. But this will bring some inclement weather to our friends down here in the islands. And I'll take a close-up look at this in a moment with a different satellite perspective. That is 95L coming off the coast of Africa. And there's also a good area of dust, solid area of dust with it. A formidable tropical wave, to be sure. There's no question about it. You definitely see the rotation there. This is a strong, large tropical wave at a low latitude. And once we get into the latter part of July and into August and beyond, especially the end of August, when we typically ramp things up. If you remember the climatology graph, you've seen it many times, I'm sure. This time of the hurricane season, it's nice and steady, and then it just ramps up very fast as we get towards the end of August. Well, we're not there yet. We're only at the end of June. we still have another 60 days, believe it or not, and that can be seeming like an eternity in terms of waiting for development. Not that anybody's waiting for it, because bad things can happen when these tropical cyclones interact with land or seagoing vessels. You know all about that, but we have a passion for tracking these things, whatever our interests are, and it's usually not until late August that things get going. But we'll watch this. I'll show you some more details on it in just a moment as we go forward. And also in the Eastern Pacific, kind of a complicated area, two competing areas of vorticity. Which one will win out? I'll kind of try to solve that puzzle in just a moment. First of all, let's take a close-up look at the tropical wave approaching the islands here. We have friends and supporters and all kinds of folks visiting the social media, the YouTube, whatever. People watch from down here in the islands, so I want to keep you updated as to what's going on. There is a little bit of rotation. In fact, let's speed this up much faster if we can. This courtesy of the weathernerds.org site. There's just a little hint of turning in the clouds right here, but and then maybe even up here as well. But really, it's limited in its moisture. But this will bring some showers and thunderstorms. That's what all this is. And if those move over your area, you can get a quick inch or two of rain, very heavy rain. You can get some flash flooding. Mariners need to be aware of this. There could be some lightning, although the lightning detection, the GLM flash counter that's built into the new GOES here, the GOES 16, not really seeing anything out here in terms of lightning. And that also tells me that there's just not a lot of instability, not a lot of upward motion. I mean, look over Puerto Rico. There's some lightning happening here with a few pop-up thunderstorms. So you folks down here in the islands, especially the leewards up here, be ready for this as it moves through small craft, out there in your sailboats or whatnot, your cabanas, your umbrellas. I talked about that yesterday. Keep those ready to go, ready to moor and bring to safe harbor when this moves through. You'll see a wind shift. I mean, the tropical waves when they pass by. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but maybe there's some visitors down there now that things are opening up more here in 2021. Just wanting you to be aware of it. All right, so the tropical wave off of Africa over here taking advantage of warmer than average sea surface temperatures elsewhere across the main development region. Generally, water temperatures running above the long-term average. Northwest Atlantic and the subtropics up here quite a bit above the long-term average. The tropical Pacific, this is going to be interesting to watch over the next few weeks. We should see a distinct cooling trend over here in the Central Pacific region in the Nino 3.4 area. Models are indicating that this will start to cool off again, and we will reduce the heat content out here, what little of it there is. Might hold on to this a little longer, and that could impact development because this leads to upward motion, but it's really not that strong of a signal. You know what I mean? We're not looking at a huge area of positive anomalies across this region of the equatorial Pacific to really thwart things in the Atlantic. There's a lot of upward motion going on over here and will continue to go on. You'll get your periods where the air sinks and you have what we call subsidence, or downward motion, I guess is a simple way to put it. But all in all, it looks like the Atlantic's still very positive for development, and the Pacific is just kind of marginal. That's my marginal sign. I just made that up. But really, the Pacific's not, look, it's mostly cold or neutral, by this little background color through here, and the Atlantic definitely stands out as being warmer than the long-term average. All right, checking the vorticity signature of our various features. Pretty large signature for the tropical wave there, 95L. So we'll watch and see, do any of these areas consolidate around one larger feature as this heads off to the west and west-northwest with time? There's no way to know for sure. Nobody knows the outcome definitively. So we'll watch. This is what I call opening up the window, literally, with the satellite here from the University of Wisconsin. It's not their satellite, it's the GOES product. But we're looking at a satellite view showing a particular channel here that allows us to see the vorticity, and that's derived from satellite. Over in the western Atlantic, and eventually this will move off into the region over here where we can see it on the western Atlantic shot. There's the area of spin or vorticity with the tropical wave near the islands. And then here's these two competing areas. Look at this one. This one's a little bit stronger here out to the west for the system in the Pacific. And I failed to mention it earlier, so let's just make up for that now. There it is off the coast of Mexico, 80%, 90% over the next 2 to 5 days respectively. And this will parallel the coast of Mexico. But you got this other feature out here that I was just showing you there on the vorticity chart that may be of, more of a competing nature than I think the computer models were thinking. They don't really think, but you know what I mean, that they were showing. So these two might compete with each other and just kind of linger off the coast of Mexico. The occasional heavy rain band or periods of rain could work their way on shore. So keep an eye on that if you have interests down there. And there's one way to look at it here is the weather model site. Recently signed up for a subscription here for myself and a couple of our back-end producers that work on graphics for us on the back end as we grow and expand thanks to our crowdfunding through Patreon and HurricaneTrack Insider. Really neat site here, weathermodels.com, and I'm trying to dig into it and learn it better. So this is one of the features that they have, is this animator, and this is the GFS 12Z, and it's the 850 millibar winds as it tries to blur its way through there, loading all these graphics and images one at a time, and then it should recycle itself. So what I want to show you is the Eastern Pacific down here. You have one area right there, then the other area here, and the GFS picking up on the easternmost system, eventually strengthening and winning out. And it never does make landfall in Mexico, which is certainly good news, but close enough that there could be some gusty winds and the occasional rain shower onshore. You never know. It's just a little wobble here and there. It could bring some heavier rain and flash flooding problems, especially since the mountains come real close to the coast down there. But look early on in the animation, this competing area here, then you got the larger one here that's mentioned by the Hurricane Center. That'll be an interesting feature to watch. Does one win out over the other? Do they both sort of help to self-destruct each other? We'll see. All right, in the Atlantic, same kind of deal. We'll put this into motion, hopefully. This is also the 12Z GFS, and this is the 850 millibar vorticity, kind of like what I show you on tropical tidbits from time to time. Notice the large feature here. That's that tropical wave, 0 to 120 hours out. You see, it never really gets very well defined as it moves across the Atlantic. So it still might become a tropical depression early on and probably small in size. And that's important to recognize, that if it gets large, it'll start pulling in more air and it self-destructs. So it's going to have to stay small. And you remember Brett, 2017, was a fairly small feature. Danny, a Category 3 hurricane, I believe it was, maybe 125 miles per hour in 2015, also out in the main development region, was a very small hurricane in 2015. That was a very down year for the Atlantic overall. We had Joaquin and we had Danny, two of the stronger storms that year. But you get these smallish tropical cyclones, and they can last for a day or two out there in the deep tropics, and that's what you would expect if you're going to have development in June. You're not going to have large Cape Verde hurricanes roaming across the Atlantic. That's really hard to do, at least until they get over here to the western part of the basin, and hopefully that won't be the case. This goes out to 5 days. We'll see what happens. Notice there's a little impulse that the GFS does bring in out of the Caribbean in towards Texas, so we'll keep an eye on that. Might bring some rain and windy conditions, and maybe it closes off more. We'll keep an eye on that. Maybe the Hurricane Center mentions it later on. Again, this is the Vorticity Signature, cyclonic relative vorticity at 5,000 feet in the atmosphere. There's a little spin here that eventually ends up into the Georgia coastline. None of these look too threatening, just innocuous, minor pieces of energy skirting across the Atlantic basin. All right, so try to talk, Mark. Take a look at this. This is the Euro Ensemble, already in motion for you there. This is from the Weather Nerd site. So this is the overnight run. This is the 0Z run of all the ensembles, 51 ensembles. And look, there's very few of them. And I bring that up because remember what it looked like yesterday? This was yesterday. And I smile because we saw this and we're like, you got to be kidding me. And there was all kinds of chatter on social media, and rightfully so. The European is not, no offense to Bob out there, but it's not Bob's model. Everybody makes up it's just a name, all right? You know what I'm saying, though? It's not done on somebody's Commodore 64. The European ECMWF is considered by many the most advanced and accurate of the global models out there. It's got its flaws. It's not perfect. But when you see this, in the ensemble guidance especially, all those members that were showing this yesterday, it was very eye-opening, quite so. But then you compare it to what it showed from the overnight run today. This is the 0Z last night into today. Not so much. Why? Why the change? Well, that's complicated, but part of it is climatology, that the euro, maybe got a little over aggressive with things, and then as more data was fed into the system, what we call assimilation, the data assimilation, where it brings in data as the tropical wave moved off Africa, maybe some more upper air data, some buoy data, who knows? But it's definitely changed its tune to much less aggressive, which makes more sense. And sometimes you got to think about, what makes sense here? Why don't we normally have development out there? And I mean, it would be different if we weren't seeing the Saharan air layer, if it was very moist out there already. I just think the euro kind of caught on, saw a period there in the modeling and all these ensembles that were showing this, and kind of ran with it. And this is back to more of a realistic look overall. So we'll see. Maybe it changes back again. The euro is starting to run now, and we'll get the ensembles here on sites like Weather Nerds or at Weather Models later this afternoon, and we'll see what happens. Maybe it's back to, oh my goodness. But I don't think this is going to be as big of an issue as it looked like yesterday. You never know, though. Certainly something to keep an eye on, and we will do just that. All right, so on Patreon and HurricaneTrack Insider, Patreon is a website and an app for fans of different creators to support those creations through monthly contributions and ideas and insight and collaboration. It's more than a subscription service by far. This is my Patreon site here, some of the posts that I've made lately, talking about all kinds of things, including our brand new episodes of the Hurricane Highway Season 2 exclusively for our patrons right now. And different blog posts in here. I really, really like Patreon's interface, that I can do WordPress type blogging, almost like our own little micro universe of social media. I can keep everything in Patreon's bounds, or I can make stuff public. It's up to me. I can share it with different tiers of the different levels that people support my project at, and it's just really neat. So if you haven't checked Patreon out, it is a website, as I'm showing you here, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack, and it's a mobile app. So we don't even have to have our own app. I used to, but why? Why do that? Why go through the headaches of an app store and fees and, it doesn't work? Just let Patreon handle it, and we can embed stuff in here, put links to things, and it just works great. It's very seamless. And the different levels, we're not doing the $1 level anymore. I mean, there's just no reason to. I think it's worth $10 a month or higher, and so do 287 other people, and 45 people. I'm sorry, it's 45 out of 125. So I'm doing the math wrong, but you get the idea. We have over 600 people that are supporting this. These are the ones that are left. So hey, let's just do the math real quick. So 775 minus 287, that'll give me 775 minus 287 is 488 people at the $10 level. That's how many people feel like it's worth it. You understand? It's more than just a subscription where, hey, I got a paywall, you pay something, and I give you something in return. It's two ways for the people that want it to be. Some people like to just be in the background and watch what's going on and contribute and be a part of it that way, quietly. Others like to be much more forward about it. And I meet a lot of these people in person, and we share ideas. We text each other. We email. Sometimes we talk on the phone. I mean, it's really amazing what we can do building this up. And there's other levels here as well, $100, $250 for businesses, you name it. And that's how you do it, through patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. What do you get? You get access to the insider site, our maps, live cams, all this stuff, especially when things are active and we're out there in the field. Our live cams are available here. Really, really neat how this has all come together. Our awesome interactive tracking map, and we have the data that comes in live. This is out in Pahrump, Nevada. This is an example of our weather station that we attached, these little kestrels. 96 degrees out there. This is at Paul's Place, one of our supporters from way back in year 1 that we started the whole subscription service in 2005. Paul's been around and has become a good friend ever since. So yeah, we got a really neat tracking map, and we get storms out there that gets active. These are all of our permanent cameras, by the way, all the way down here in Puerto Rico. You know, I showed you that there was some rain and some storms down there, so let's see what the camera shows. And, well, not in San Juan at least, so that's good. This is at Carlos, at his apartment. He's a supporter. And these are the people. These are the people that make it happen. And these are the tools that we provide you, including the HurricaneTrack Originals. Hurricane Highway Season 2. I put the credits. I credit the people at the $25 level that support us for at least throughout the season. In the end credits, crowdfunding these episodes. I'm probably going to have 9 more episodes. All of our original documentaries, everything. It's like our own little Netflix, so to speak. Hey, come on, Netflix had to start somewhere, and now they're a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon. Maybe we will be too one day. At least in our own little world of hurricanes and weather, I think what we've grown here is pretty remarkable. And that's how we do it. That's how we support it. And the power of crowdfunding is a lot to it. So if you want to get involved, that's a little taste of what you have access to with your support. And it helps to build the future as well. All right. Well, that is it from me for this afternoon. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Don't forget, I do have the podcast, the audio podcast. It's called Hurricane Season, the podcast. You search that, Hurricane Season, the podcast, on Apple and Spotify, Google Podcasts. Subscribe to that, and tell it to update your device of choice every morning. I put that together, and it's like a 4 or 5 minute at the longest audio version of this, kind of giving you an idea of what we're going to be looking at in the day ahead. And then I do the hurricane outlook and discussion in the afternoon. All right, so there you go. All right, now I'll sign off. Again, have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks as always for tuning in and giving me a piece of your day. I do appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.